Hiya! Thanks so much for joining me today. Today's video is going to be about the films I've been watching recently. As you know, I mentioned in my last video I've been doing a go through the AFI's top 100 films of all time, and I'm trying to see them as much as I can this year. I've got over 50 left to go, which isn't too bad. It's a pretty decent number to get through this year, especially the rate I watch them, which is currently going at about 2 or 3 a week. So looking forward to this, it's good. I'll talk first about the 3 I saw from my AFI list. So these are all available on Netflix at the moment, at least they are in the UK, don't know about how it is overseas, internationally. The first film I managed to watch this week is a film I've been meaning to watch for such a long time, Dr. Strangelove. Now, I've obviously heard massively great things about this film. A lot of people consider it an absolute classic. The film stars Peter Sellers, directed by Stanley Kubrick. It came out in 1964. It's a black and white film, satirical comedy, about let's say a situation revolving around a nuclear attack that's going wrong. Someone's prompted a nuclear war, that's going to do all sorts of devastation. A doomsday device will be released by Russia, it's going to destroy the entire planet, we have to get everything back. Peter Sellers plays several characters. He plays President of the United States. He also plays Dr. Strangelove, the eponymous Dr. Strangelove. He also plays a British army officer who's based in the base that has sort of caused all of the trouble that's going on. So, as a film, I like this one. It was good. I think it's one of those things where, over the years, perhaps it hasn't, for me, it didn't quite hit the spot. I think with comedies these days I have some really great classic comedies that I love. I love the Monty Python films, for example. I think Life of Brian's probably the best comedy that's ever been made. And, you know, if there's a film to rival it, it's probably Holy Grail. So these are my ideas of really fantastic comedies. Dr. Strangelove was good. It had some good moments. It did have some bits that made me laugh. The classic lines that everyone knows, you know, you can't fight in here, it's a war room. It's a great line, but I felt that it suffered a bit from having been, let's say, built up a little bit too much by people over the years. And with that in mind, I only gave the film a 7 out of 10. I was expecting it to be a sort of 9 out of 10 type film for me, but no, it came in at about 7. I liked it a lot. It really was enjoyable. I think it lagged at certain points. I didn't find the bits in the actually within the cockpit of the airplane. I didn't find them very good. I think towards the end, with the characterizations of Dr. Strangelove, for me it really did pick up, and you know that really sort of finished it off on a high, which was good. But otherwise, you know, I've seen quite a few of Stanley Kubrick's films, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's certainly not one of my favourite Kubrick films of all time. Yeah, for me it was a little bit lacking. Anyway, second film I watched this week from my AFI list was In the Heat of the Night. Now, In the Heat of the Night is directed by someone who I'd never heard of before, which is a chap by the name of Norman Jewison. It stars Sidney Poitier as Virgil Tibbs. The basic premise of the film is that a top black detective from Philadelphia just happens to be passing through the town of Sparta, Mississippi, and there's been a murder in the town. They really desperately need his help, and he's volunteered to help by his captain. All this is set against background of sort of racial tension, awful lot of racial tension. The character of Virgil Tibbs is wildly unpopular in the local town, and I thought this was an interesting film. I certainly found it was a well-paced film. For me, the film itself, it never dragged. It was really interesting from start to finish. I certainly found I could watch it all the way through without any issues. I have to say that some of the dialogue, particularly revolving around Virgil Tibbs, I thought it was interesting. You had those great moments of conflict between a white character and a black character, particularly the sort of local cotton field owning chap who's who's through and through racist, slaps Virgil Tibbs around the face. And you know, if you've seen the film, you know what the reaction is, and it's still quite a powerful scene. I did find that some of the dialogue, the sort of "they call me Mr. Tibbs" type dialogue, to be, I didn't find it having as much power as I think they were going for. I don't know why. For me, Sidney Poitier is quite a, I describe him as stoic. To me, his acting style is quite stoic. It was well acted, but for the most part, it was sort of a blank wooden expression that occasionally cracked into a smile, and that was about it. But that's my taste. Rod Steiger was great in the film. Again, it's another one of those things where I'm seeing films recently, and I'm finding quite a lot that the films that I'm watching, you're getting the same actors sort of pitted throughout the different films, and they're actors I've never really come across before. So that happened previously with Lee J. Cobb, who was in The Waterfront and was also in 12 Angry Men. And this film, Rod Steiger was in The Waterfront. He played Marlon Brando's brother on The Waterfront. So that was a new one for me. I hadn't come across that before. I wasn't aware of that. So that was really interesting. So I enjoyed that film. Gave In the Heat of the Night a solid 8 out of 10. Actually, forget solid. Really good 8 out of 10. Great film. Now, last film I watched this week for my AFI list was, it's actually the earliest of the films to be made, 1944, and it's Double Indemnity. Now again, directed by someone I didn't particularly know, Billy Wilder. This film stars Fred MacMurray as Walter Neff, who is a insurance salesman who comes across a wife who wants to be able to get a accidental death insurance policy on her husband. And he kind of smells a rat, thinks something's up, and they two of them kind of work together eventually to plot the murder of the husband. Now, Barbara Stanwyck plays Phyllis, who is the wife, and you also have Edward G. Robinson as a claims adjuster who is a well-respected guy. He investigates claims that he thinks are fraudulent or faulty in some way, and he basically comes after them. He has a very close working relationship with Walter Neff. Two of them work in the same company, and they have a sort of really great dialogue between the two, great relationship between the two of them. But he kind of comes after them really hard. He gets a bit of a feeling in his stomach, which he gets when he thinks there's a problem with the case. So they're kind of trying to plan the perfect case that can't possibly get a problem, and to claim the insurance money from the accidental death whilst actually committing the murder. And it's a really, really good film. It's got a huge amount to recommend it. The dialogue is some of the best dialogue I've heard in a film in such a long time. I've not really come across a film that has such a strong relationship between the main characters, where the dialogue between the two is just back and forward. Between Neff and Barton Keyes, the character played by Edward G. Robinson, the wit is just back and forth between the two of them. It's outstanding. Not something I didn't really expect to see that in a film like this. I normally find with older films the language is quite stilted, it's quite staid, it's quite of its time. But this was just witty and fantastic. Now, one thing I would say, there's a few tropes in the film that I think today have been used up a little bit too much in terms of their effectiveness, but because this was an older film, it came across really well. The whole, the car won't start, adding a bit of tension into the film, which I thought was good. One thing I would say is, if I was going to challenge someone to do a drinking game, there are certain films where you can play a drinking game to them. One of my favourite films with Nell and I, you drink what the two main characters drink as they drink. And that's a game that will basically leave you under the table very quickly. I would challenge anyone to watch this film and take a drink every time Walter Neff says baby. Because I didn't count, but I would guess he says the word baby roughly 20 to 30 times through the film. And it got to the point where it was becoming a bit of a, not a joke, but it was so noticeable all the time. Because it's such a word you don't hear anymore in modern language, particularly said to women. You just don't hear that phrase baby. It just doesn't work in today's society. And it was really funny to hear it said so many times during this film. Constantly, give me some iced tea, baby. Funny, really was funny. Now, having said that, I loved the film. I thought it was great. I gave this a 9 out of 10. For me, it's right up there with On the Waterfront from last week, but just underneath it. But it's still a fantastically well-deserving 9 out of 10. So, Double Indemnity, thoroughly recommend it. 1944. Go see that one. Absolutely find a way to see that one. So, thank you very much for joining. Glad you made it all the way to the end. Thanks so much for that. And bye! Bye!